Thank you, Commissioner. Today begins a process for the county and the county library, a process outlined in state statute. And so we will go through that process, and this process will continue for the next few months. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. But in order to give perhaps the best context for what the county is doing, we would like to give some public information today, and then we will go in and talk about what Commissioner Petroff has just outlined in the way of tax increases. In order for us to lay the foundation, we'd like to talk a little bit about how property taxes work in the state of Utah. In the state of Utah, there is a base property tax, and that is the prior year's revenue from property tax. Now, that base property tax is utilized to provide core governmental services, things ranging from property rights recordation to correctional facilities, to marriage licenses, to criminal defense. It's a wide variety of services, but these are core government services that are necessary for the well-being of the citizens of this county. Services are tied to property tax, which is by nature set in state statute to be a very stable tax base, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we want to talk about how that tax base is derived so that there's a clear understanding in the public. We want to start by giving you an example. Let's assume that Davis County has 4 properties, and those properties all have the same value of $100,000. Now, the base property tax revenue received by the county is $1,000. And so, as you can see on this example, you take the total property value in the county, which is $400,000. You have your total base property tax of $1,000, and you divide that by the total property value, which gives you your tax rate. The tax rate here is, in this example, would be 0.00250. When you apply that tax rate to the value of the property, you have a tax of $250 on each property. So the total tax revenue equals $1,000, or the total base property tax is $1,000. Now, commonly a misconception is that if the county or the assessor in the county raises the value of a home, they are raising my taxes. Let's look at that scenario. Let's assume that all 4 houses double in value, and so now they equal $200,000. The total base property tax is still $1,000. The revenue received to provide those core governmental services is $1,000, and this is how that works out. Once again, you can see our total value is now $800,000. It's doubled. But you take that $1,000 of total base property tax and divide it by your $800,000. Your tax rate is cut in half. It is now 0.00125. Apply that to the property values, and once again, the homes are paying $250, and the total base property tax received by the county is $1,000. Now, naturally, not all homes are the same value. And so let's run an example in which we now have home values that have gone up and home values that have gone down. This one has the number 1 property has gone down to $120,000, where we had it before at $200,000, $250,000, $170,000, $310,000. The total base property tax is once again $1,000. So our total property value is now $850,000. We take the $1,000 of total base property tax, divide it by that $850,000, and our tax rate now becomes 0.00118. We apply that to the property values now. And you can see the lowest valued home at $120,000 pays a tax of $141. The largest home of $310,000 pays a tax of $365. So taxes vary, but the total base property tax remains $1,000 that the county receives to provide those core services. So regardless of how property values go in the county, the total base property tax remains the same. If property values go up, the tax rate goes down, and the base property tax is $1,000. If total property values drop, then the tax rate goes up, and the base property tax is $1,000. Once again, this is a very stable system. It was designed to be stable because it does provide funding for core services. Now, with stability also comes some challenges. How does inflation affect tax revenue? So once again, base property tax provides county services. So if the county received $1,000 in 2008 in base property tax, they could provide $1,000 of services. By 2016, that same $1,000, that base property tax that they've continued to take year after year, now can only provide $895 of those core services. Inflation has eaten away the value of that initial base property tax. Sometimes the question is asked, we have all this growth happening. Look at the West Side. Don't you get new money from that? And the answer is absolutely, yes, we do. We do receive new funding from the new growth. Having said that, new properties require additional services. This means that new growth is meant to cover the cost of additional services. It was never intended to offset the loss from inflation. So what is the county proposing in the tax increase? Now that we have an understanding of how property taxes work and that base property tax, this is what Commissioner Petroff, what he read. We'll now go into some discussion of what it means to taxpayers and what we are recommending. The not-to-exceed amount that we are recommending is $7.2 million. That is an increase of 23.37% of the county property tax increment. That is a key phrase, the county property tax increment. We'll talk about that in a few moments. That will mean on an average home, the average value of a home in Davis County currently is $260,000. There will be an increase of $56.91 to the average home. Davis County Library, in addition, we are announcing a tax increase not to exceed $1.25 million. That's an increase of 20.18% of the library property tax increment. That will mean an annual increase on an average home of $9.87. Now, we are at the beginning of a process. Next week, the county will begin budget meetings. The budget committee will meet with each department. We will be reviewing requests. Those are public meetings. We invite all interested public to come and attend. We will also be holding a series of open houses in which the public can come and interact and engage the budget committee and other staff from Davis County and ask their questions. We encourage people to attend. We have put those open houses the week of November 29th through December 1st. That's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The first will be held here in our admin building as the center of the county. On Wednesday night, November 30th, from 6 to 9 p.m., we'll be at the Clearfield Library, the north end of the county. And on Thursday, December 1st, from 6 to 9 p.m., we will be at Bountiful City Hall. We encourage everybody that has questions, comments, to come to those and gather information and form their own opinion on this tax increase. There will then be a public hearing held on Tuesday, December 6th at 6 p.m. for the library portion of the tax increase. That will be held at the Davis Conference Center in Layton at 7 p.m., or as soon as that public hearing is done, we will open to the Davis County tax increase public hearing. And those will be public hearings. That's a time for the public to come and comment, provide their opinion. We would prefer that they ask questions at those open houses because it is a public hearing, and so we will be listening that night. And we will, the schedule is currently tentatively set that on December 13th, we will approve the budget. So we would ask the public to make their voice known at the public open houses, ask the questions, and then if they are so inclined to come and have public comment on the 6th, and then on December 13th, we will have the meeting to approve the budget for 2017. So, let's talk a little bit about the increment. When the tax notice goes out, a common misconception is Davis County is recommending an increase of 23.37%. The misconception is that they are applying that 23% to their total tax bill. The slide before you shows that right now what we're talking about is 16.5% of your tax bill will be affected by that 23.37%. The same is true in the library's case, where the library is currently 2.6% of your tax bill. That 2.6% will be affected. So the impact of the recommended tax increase changes the pie, so to speak, to the county receiving 18.7% from the 16.5%, and the library receiving 3% from the 2.6%. So why does Davis County need a tax increase? The last tax increase was in 2007, which was 10 years ago. As noted in the How Property Taxes Work presentation, the county has lost to inflation approximately $4.5 million of spending power. Those core services that we were able to provide before have begun to be impacted by inflation. In addition to that, over the last 4 years, the county has had a strategic spend down of fund balance. That spend down was strategic and was planned, and in last year's budget, we did not have a spend down. That was because of one-time monies that were procured to ensure that we were running as efficiently as possible. Otherwise, we would have spent down fund balance for the 5th straight year. In 2016, the county had an independent firm conduct a salary survey. In order to become competitive in the labor market, we need to make market adjustments. We also have additional needs in areas that have been deferred, in the areas of flood control, information systems, facility maintenance, and various capital projects. So this is how we currently project, understanding that we are at the beginning of the budget process. These percentages could, and I would expect will, shift to some degree. But this is where the $7.2 million increase will go. The bulk of it, 34%, will go to stabilizing the fund balance. We need to stop that strategic spend down because we can't continue that. In order to keep fund balances at the levels that are appropriate for bonding and rating agencies, we cannot continue that spend down. The next part is wage market adjustments. As noted earlier, that will be about 21%. We anticipate 10% will go to strengthen our information systems. 11% will be used to revitalize the Memorial Courthouse. 3% will be dedicated to staffing requirements that are needed. We have 16% to capital projects and equipment. There are various capital projects with buildings and equipment that are on the horizon that we need to prepare for. One in particular is voting equipment. Voting equipment is changing in the state of Utah, and we do not anticipate federal funding for that as we received in the past. We also have items that need to be addressed with buildings as we seek to extend their life to recoup the investments that have been made. Finally, we have facilities maintenance. The county is seeking to be more proactive in maintaining the facilities of the county. And to do so, there are needs in our facilities department that need to be addressed. So, how does the county currently spend the tax dollars we receive? Currently, 50% of taxes received from the county go to public safety. We have 38% to general government services, land recordation, marriage licenses, surveyor, information systems, those core government functions that need to be rendered. 1% is currently being spent on debt service, 1% to capital outlay, annually buying vehicles and capital equipment. 5% is being dedicated to public works and flood projects. And as noted, that is one of the areas that we see a need to bolster in upcoming years as the growth of the county expands west, flood channels, and flood prevention to prevent property loss and life safety need to be addressed. A transfer to our health department and senior services of 4%, and then 911 services, there's a transfer about 1%. How do we know that the county is running efficiently? County government is here to provide services to the citizens. So one measure that we have looked at is per capita, which is taking your population and tying that to your expenditures. Per capita, in expenditures, Davis County spends $332.90. On average, second-class counties, which are counties of a comparable size and population, spend $412.18. And across the state of Utah, the average is much higher. Davis County is the lowest in the state of Utah in per capita expenditures. The same is true when it comes to revenues. As you can see, the numbers once again. The county in revenues per capita is $323.70. Second class average is $409.58. And then the state of Utah at $681.90. Once again, we are the lowest in the state. Looking at 5-year average of expenditures, Davis County expenditures have only increased by 2.84% over the last 5 years. This is an average increase of 0.73% annually. Now, for those of you that might be looking at the math and saying that doesn't make sense, there were years that we went negative, and so that average was brought down. We reduced expenses beyond the prior year. Full-time equivalent employees have decreased from 885 employees in 2011 to 884 in 2015. Why does the Davis County Library need a tax increase? The last tax increase for the library was in 2000, 16 years ago. The tax-based revenue has eroded by $1.9 million to inflation. Significant investments in aging infrastructure are needed in order to meet the needs of the Davis County citizens. Current funding levels will not meet operational or capital improvement needs. which, if not addressed in upcoming years, will require a reduction in services. So where will the $1.25 million increase go? We are, at this point, projecting a rebuild of the South Branch Library, an expansion of the Syracuse Library, and a remodel of the North Branch, which is in Clearfield. Operations, there are operational needs with expanding library services. With the expansion and the expanding need for technology, the library is becoming a focal point for that in our community. We also need to start allocating resources to sustain the current buildings and grounds. So how do we know that the library is operating effectively? Once again, these statistics are from the Utah State Library website, and I would add that each county is different, and so we're not trying to target anyone. We're just trying to point out where we stand with other organizations. Davis County Library, on a per capita operating and capital expenditure, spends $40.16. Weber County Library, $83.24. Salt Lake City Library, $81.26. And Salt Lake County Library, $43.51. Again, in operating revenues per capita, the county is currently $33.01. Weber County Library, $84.63. Salt Lake City Library, $89.02. Salt Lake County Library, $49.26. Once again, it's important to keep in mind that varying land requirements impact those numbers, but we do feel strongly that they are an indication of the efficiency and effectiveness of our library system. And then we have a snapshot. Physical materials of over 750,000, downloadable materials of 45,000, 2.4 million total circulation of materials, and perhaps most interesting as we talk about technology and the need for expansion, public internet sessions, 373,000, so about 1,000 a day on average, and that is if we were open 365 days a year. That is using our equipment, county-owned equipment. When you go to wireless internet sessions, you double that, well, almost double it, to 762,000 sessions. There is an exploding demand or need for these services in the county. That concludes our presentation, Commissioners. We look forward to the process, and this will be a process. We invite the public to engage in this process, preferably before December 6th. But if that's the time they choose to engage, that's fine as well. But we are open, we are interested in the input, and we are happy to answer any questions that may arise from this. Thank you.